Dick Van Dyke is a name that has become synonymous with entertainment history. As he celebrates his remarkable 100th birthday, his legacy extends far beyond his legendary roles in television and film. Dick Van Dyke's influence on Hollywood and popular culture is undeniable. With his infectious charm, immense talent, and incredible longevity, he remains an icon of joy and laughter. However, as much as we admire the public figure of Dick Van Dyke, it's important to remember the person behind the legacy. The man who has lived a full, rich life, with all the highs and lows that accompany it. Reaching the age of 100 is no small feat, and for someone like Dick, whose career spans decades, it also comes with a bittersweet reality. The loss of friends, colleagues, and loved ones over the years has been an unavoidable part of his journey. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the 6 celebrity deaths that affected Dick Van Dyke the most throughout his incredible career. Before we explore these personal losses, let's take a moment to reflect on the life that made Dick Van Dyke the beloved star he is today. Dick Van Dyke was born on December 13, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri. Growing up in a modest household in Danville, Illinois, Dick did not have the lavish lifestyle that many imagine when they think of Hollywood stars. His family was not rich, and life was simple. Dick's father was a traveling salesman, and his mother was a homemaker. From a young age, Dick displayed an incredible amount of energy, always moving, running, and making people laugh with his antics. He had a natural flair for entertaining. Despite his early interest in the arts, Dick did not initially plan to become an actor. During his high school years, he had aspirations of becoming a minister, largely influenced by his active participation in his church. However, life had other plans for him. Dick joined his high school drama club and quickly realized that he had a passion for the stage. His love for performing, coupled with his quick wit and knack for physical comedy, steered him towards a career in entertainment. In 1943, when Dick was 18, World War II began, and like many young men at the time, he enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces. While in the military, Dick found ways to entertain his fellow soldiers, performing in variety shows and working as a radio announcer. This period was crucial in shaping Dick's career, as it solidified his desire to pursue a life in show business once the war ended. After the war, Dick returned to civilian life and began working in radio. It was during these years that he honed his comedic timing and skills. He soon made the leap to television, which was in its early stages. Many of the shows were local, and performers had to be versatile, doing everything from singing and dancing to acting and hosting. Dick's first major television job was in a comedy duo called the Merry Mutes. This gig allowed him to explore his physical comedy, which became one of his trademarks, particularly his rubber legs and ability to fall without injury. As Dick continued to work in television, he realized that his passion for performing could lead to something bigger. By the late 1950s, he moved to New York City with the goal of trying his luck on Broadway. There, Dick landed a major role in the musical Bye Bye Birdie, which turned out to be a game-changer for him. Even though he had no formal dance training, his natural coordination and enthusiasm made him a standout, and he won a Tony Award for his performance. This success caught the attention of Hollywood, and Dick's career began to soar. In 1961, Dick starred in The Dick Van Dyke Show, a groundbreaking television series that would become a cultural phenomenon. The show, which featured Dick as Rob Petrie, a TV writer, was an instant success. It showcased his incredible ability to combine physical comedy with sharp wit, making him a household name. The show also introduced audiences to his incredible chemistry with Mary Tyler Moore, who played his wife, Laura Petrie. Their on-screen partnership was electric, and their comedic timing became the gold standard for television sitcoms. As the Dick Van Dyke Show grew in popularity, Dick's career in Hollywood took off. He starred in a series of iconic films, most notably as Bert, the cheerful chimney sweep in Mary Poppins, 1964, where he performed a memorable dance with animated penguins and sang about being supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. The movie became a classic, and Dick's portrayal of Bert earned him a place in the hearts of children worldwide. He followed this success with another beloved film, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 1968, where he played Caractacus Potts, the eccentric inventor of a magical flying car. Dick's versatility didn't stop at comedy and musicals. In the 1990s, he reinvented himself by starring in Diagnosis Murder, a television series where he played Dr. Mark Sloan, a physician who solved crimes. The show ran for 8 successful seasons and showed audiences that Dick could excel in genres beyond comedy. Even in his later years, Dick continued to work in film, making appearances in Night at the Museum and returning to the Mary Poppins franchise with a special dance number in Mary Poppins Returns, 2018, a heartwarming moment that proved his enduring star power. While Dick's professional life was filled with triumphs, his personal journey has also been marked by loss. Over the years, he has said goodbye to many people who were not only colleagues, but close friends. The deaths of these 6 celebrities, in particular, left a lasting impact on Dick, each one shaping his outlook on life in different ways. Dick Van Dyke's relationship with Mary Tyler Moore was one of the most significant in his life. The two first met during the casting process for the Dick Van Dyke Show. The creators had already chosen Dick for the lead role of Rob Petrie, but struggled to find the perfect actress to play his wife, Laura. After auditioning over 60 women, Mary, at just 23 years old, walked into the room, and the rest, as they say, is history. Her unique voice, comedic timing, and charm made her the ideal choice for the role. Off-screen, Dick and Mary's bond grew even stronger. They quickly became close friends, and their natural chemistry was evident not only in their performances, but in their real-life connection. Over the years, they spent a lot of time together, both on and off the set. Their shared love of physical comedy and their mutual respect for each other as performers made them an iconic television duo. In January 2017, when Mary passed away at the age of 80 after battling complications from type 1 diabetes, Dick was heartbroken. He has openly spoken about how much he missed her, describing her as a sister and one of the most important people in his life. Mary's death was a painful reminder for Dick that time waits for no one, and that even the brightest stars are not immune to life's inevitable challenges. Another celebrity whose death deeply affected Dick was Carl Reiner, the legendary comedian, director, and writer who created the Dick Van Dyke Show. Carl's influence on Dick's career cannot be overstated. He was not just a mentor, but a close friend, and their partnership on the show helped shape the future of television comedy. Carl Reiner passed away in 2020, at the age of 98, leaving behind a legacy of laughter and creative brilliance. Dick has often spoken fondly of Carl, remembering the hours they spent brainstorming ideas, sharing jokes, and creating some of the most memorable moments in television history. Losing Carl was like losing a part of his own creative soul. Dick continues to honor Carl's memory by carrying on the work they started together, often referencing him as one of his biggest inspirations. Dick Van Dyke's remarkable career has spanned decades, marked by laughter, love, and deep friendships. As he reached the milestone of 100 years old, he found himself reflecting on the people who shaped his life the most. Some of them were famous figures in their own right, others perhaps lesser known. But all of them had a profound impact on him. As Van Dyke approached his century mark, he looked back with a mix of joy, nostalgia, and of course, loss. In a life lived in the spotlight, there were many celebrity deaths that affected him deeply. But among them, a few stand out as being especially significant. One of the most emotional losses Dick experienced was the passing of his longtime friend and co-star, Mary Tyler Moore. They had starred together on The Dick Van Dyke Show, a groundbreaking sitcom that became an iconic part of American television history. Despite the fact that they hadn't worked together every day in recent years, Dick and Mary had remained close. They stayed in touch, performed together on special occasions, and continued to share fond memories of their time together. When Mary passed away, it hit Dick like a ton of bricks. She had been more than just a co-star. She had been a true companion, a woman he often referred to as his work wife. Their bond went beyond professional chemistry. It was one of mutual respect, deep admiration, and friendship. At her private memorial service, Dick stood up to give a eulogy that was as heartfelt as it was moving. He didn't talk about her fame or beauty, although those were undeniable. Instead, Dick spoke about Mary's incredible talent and her ability to hold the show together with her impeccable timing and warmth. He described her as the engine behind The Dick Van Dyke Show, a true co-pilot who made the magic happen on screen. While Dick had the physical comedy and the big laughs, it was Mary's calm yet razor-sharp wit that kept everything running smoothly. Dick spoke of their moments together on set, including the time they spent dancing. Those moments were the epitome of joy for Dick, and losing Mary meant that a big piece of his own personal and professional history was gone. Even at 100, Dick speaks of her with a twinkle in his eye, but there's also a note of sadness in his voice. Their friendship and partnership had been something that time could never erase, and Mary's loss left a void in his life that could never be filled. Next in line was the loss of Carl Reiner, one of the most important figures in Dick Van Dyke's career. Carl wasn't just a colleague. He was a true brother in comedy. The two had worked together for decades, starting with The Dick Van Dyke Show, and their friendship endured long after the show ended. Carl, a brilliant writer and performer, had a huge influence on Dick's success. But perhaps what made their bond so unique was that Carl didn't just create the show. They created something special together. In 1960, Carl had written a script for a show called Head of the Family, originally meant for him to star in. However, after filming the pilot, the producers felt Carl wasn't quite right for the role and needed someone else to bring a different energy. This was the moment when Carl met Dick Van Dyke. Carl, despite being a successful actor and writer, was humble enough to step aside and allow Dick to take the lead. Carl recognized that Dick had a special energy, a kind of magnetic charm that would make the show great. So he made the decision to step back from the spotlight and become the creator and writer, allowing Dick to take center stage. This was a pivotal moment in both of their careers. It showed Carl's selflessness, his dedication to creating great television rather than seeking fame for himself. Carl became the architect of The Dick Van Dyke Show, building the world of the show around Dick's natural talents. Their professional relationship quickly blossomed into a deep, lifelong friendship. Carl and Dick came from different backgrounds and had different styles of comedy. Carl was known for his quick wit and wordplay, heavily influenced by Jewish humor, while Dick was a master of slapstick and physical comedy. Yet, when they combined their talents, they created a unique comedic style that resonated with audiences across the world. For the next 60 years, Carl and Dick's friendship remained a cornerstone of their lives. Carl and Dick's friendship wasn't just confined to the set. They lived near each other, ate dinners together, and spent countless nights watching movies, talking about life, and sharing ideas. These game night years were some of the most cherished moments in Dick's life. Dick often referred to Carl as his muse. Whenever Carl sat down to write something funny, he would think about how Dick would deliver the lines. Their bond was inseparable, and the idea of losing Carl seemed almost unimaginable to Dick. Carl Reiner passed away in June 2020 at the age of 98. Despite Carl's advanced age and declining health, Dick continued visiting him regularly until the end. The loss of Carl was a monumental blow to Dick. Not only had he lost a dear friend, but he had lost a brother in comedy, someone who understood him better than almost anyone else. In the wake of Carl's death, Dick shared that the world felt quieter without Carl's laughter, a profound statement that resonated with all who knew them. The late-night talks, the shared dinners, and the movie marathons were now memories. The silence left in Carl's absence was something Dick could never get used to.